All right, we are Chargers and Cars having coffee. Today I have Pastor Steve Stroope with Lakepoint Church with me today, and I'm excited. Pastor Steve, thanks for grabbing coffee this morning.
It's a privilege for me. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to have hot tea today instead of coffee.
Not a problem, and I will have a bottle of water.
Good. So, should we change the title of this thing?
No, we're going to keep the title.
Okay.
The branding's already there. I'm excited about having you on the vodcast. For a number of reasons. One, your connection with Dallas Christian. Two, I've been so impressed with the way that you lead your ministry, and really the growth of your ministry over the years. Maybe most people don't know you have a lot of reach, and we're going to talk about some of that in terms of the ways that you help serve pastors really around the world, and some of the things that you have done there. But for the listeners, talk a little bit about Lakepoint and its inception. And I want to first say that we've been in the area for about 7 years. Our very first introduction to Lakepoint was through the athletic ministry.
Oh, good. Great ministry.
And so we wanted to get our oldest daughter into some basketball, and so we signed her up. And literally from the very first moment that we started with the registration and all that, we really felt like it was going to be a good experience. And then our very first practice, the way the coach emphasized prayer, teamwork, and the little devotional that they would do.
Yeah.
It was very meaningful to us. And so I know a lot of people know about your athletic ministries, but talk about the church, how it began, and just give us the story of Lakepoint.
Yeah. Lakepoint was started in 1979. 7 families, Dr. King got together and decided that there was a need in the Rockwall area for a new church that would reach out to people who did not have a previous church background, who might not feel comfortable going to more of a traditional church. They weren't critical of the traditional church. They just felt like there needed to be a different outreach. And so those families got together, and they'd been going for about 6 months when they contacted us. I was a seminary student, 26 years old at the time, so you can tell that was a long time ago. And they said, hey, would you like to come and be our first pastor? And so I came to do that. And early on, we decided that one of the hallmarks or DNA of our church would be that we would be a church that would keep a balance between reaching new people for Christ and then discipling the people that we reach for Christ. That most churches have a tendency to go one side or the other. Mm-hmm. Our question is if that reaching people is the right wing of the plane and helping disciple people is the left wing of the plane, which wing would you rather have when you fly on a plane? And the question is, the answer is both. And so that's been kind of our hallmark to keep a balance in terms of the Great Commission. So, and the church has grown slowly over the years. We kind of like to see ourselves as an oak tree that just grows healthy and grows slowly. Interesting fact, in the 38 years we've never set an attendance goal because we don't think big is better, we think healthy is better.
I like that.
And all healthy things will grow, and that's up to God how big we are.
So Pastor Steve, I know we're getting into the time of year, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and of course your Easter. I always see the marketing for the Easter. What type of things do you guys have going on for Thanksgiving? Any programs for Christmas or?
Yeah, our next big thing is Christmas. We have 7 services at our original campus for Christmas Eve. We used to do Christmas Eve, and then we had to have too many services, so we started doing Christmas Eve. And then a couple years ago, we started a Christmas Eve. So we'll be doing that for Christmas, and it's a real simple format. It's basically to give people a chance to gather with family, to sing some Christmas carols. Thank you much.
Absolutely.
To
I think I'll set that down. Yeah, thanks.
Have a short presentation of the gospel. Usually a lot of kids in the room, and so it's got to be short.
Yeah.
And then we always do a faith story. So we tell a story of a family that didn't know Jesus Christ last year at Christmas.
Oh, wow.
And they always start the story off, this Christmas is going to be a little different. And then they tell why it's going to be different. And, of course, it's because of the difference that Christ makes. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, we have a lot of families at Dallas Christian connected with Lakepoint, and so we really appreciate the ministry that you guys do there. Talk a little bit about your connection with Dallas Christian. I know you've got some grandkids there, so tell us a little bit about your history. Actually, you know D.C. way longer than I've known D.C., so talk about your history and connection with Dallas Christian.
Yeah, there have been a lot of folks in our church who had kids go to D.C., and they've always had great things to say about the school. And then we started having grandkids, and I actually have 5 grandkids from age 4 up to age 16. And 2 of those are students at DC, and that would be Jax Ortiz, who's our oldest grandson, and then Boone Randall, my youngest daughter's son, who also attends there and who's in grade school. And it's been a super experience for them. We've got 2 kids that are in public schools, 2 that are in Dallas Christian, and 1 that is preschool, or not yet in school. And one of the things I've discovered about kids, if you had 10 of them, they'd all be different. And as a result, you communicate with them differently, you affirm them differently. They all have different love languages, they all have different personalities, and they all have different needs. And I've always encouraged our people to, when it comes to schooling, to approach it in the same way, to say, what's best for this child? And it's been a tremendous experience for the 2 that are in DC, and it's been a tremendous experience for the 2 that are in public school right now. It's been a real good experience for us.
And we affirm that as well. We love having Jax at school. He's a great leader. And I got to really get to hang out with Boone. He was the principal for the day in elementary. Now, Boone is a voracious reader.
Yes, he is.
Oh, my word.
Everywhere he goes, he wants to know if he can take a book with him.
He is.
And then what we have to do is we have to kind of limit it at this point.
He is. I was popping in some of the classrooms last week before Grandparents' Day, and so Boone was in class, and of course had a big, thick book that he was reading. It was a series of some kind.
Yeah.
And I said, "Hey, Boone, how many AR points do you have?" And quickly, over 500 points.
Yeah, he has topped the 500 mark.
Well, we're only been in school for 3 months.
Yeah. He really enjoys reading, and I've told him, I said, that's going to serve you well.
Yep.
Because you've got a world of information when you're a reader.
Since this is Chargers and Cars having coffee, what was your first car?
Well, my first car was a 1954 Chevy Bel Air that was given to me by my grandfather, which I was very grateful for, because my dad, when I was very young, taught me the 10-10-80 rule. And he said, first 10% that you ever make is going to go to the Lord. The second is going to go into savings, and then you get to live on 80%. And it's important that you put that savings in there, because if you buy a car one of these days, you're going to pay for half of it. And if you go to college, you're going to pay for half of your college.
Really?
So my granddad really helped that whole process by giving a car to me. He actually gave the car to my brother and I. I have an older brother who's a year and a half older.
Okay.
And so we shared the Chevy until I went off to school. And then we handed it down to my younger brother, and then I had to pay for half of my car, which was a 1969 Mustang.
Okay.
That was a sweet car that I totaled my sophomore year in college.
Oh, no.
During an ice storm.
Oh.
Now, what was your first car?
My first car that I bought was a 1975 4-door Chevelle Malibu.
Okay.
And I'm not a car enthusiast, but I'm told the 2-door Chevelle Malibu was a little more impressive than the 4-door, but
and more expensive.
And probably more expensive. Pastor Steve, one of the things I've enjoyed you being so gracious with your time with me over the years. We've had multiple sit-down conversations. You've given me solid, great advice, good leadership principles. I know one of the times we sat down, you gave me some book ideas, and you told me a little bit about some of this. I forget the exact name of it. This network that you either help start or you're a part of that helps to reach out to pastors and leaders around the world in terms of their own leadership development and capacity. Talk a little bit about what that program is, and I think our people would be interested in that.
Yeah, Lakepoint has relationships with 32 local ministries in the Metroplex that we work with to help raise their leadership level. And then in addition to that, we've had the privilege of starting 40 churches around the United States in what I call spiritually under-resourced areas, where people who live in those communities don't have access to conservative evangelical churches. So that would be places like Boston and Los Angeles and Denver. I was surprised how unchurched Denver was. I really was, yeah. Portland, Seattle, San Francisco Bay Area. And so we've been real interested in starting churches in those areas, then mentoring the young men who go to be pastors of those places. And then in addition to that, we've had the privilege to establish relationships with 22 individual churches in 11 different countries, and have also done coaching related to those as well. And so it's really a very casual relationship. We don't have a president of the organization. We don't have a building overhead or anything else. It's just out of our church to have a relationship with those people, and we pull them in from time to time for them to do learning from each other. We take kind of the TED Talk format, where
like that.
A guy who maybe started planning church 9 years ago will talk about that for a young man who's in his second year of planning a church. And so really, right now, we've become a curator more than we have become a content producer.
Things I'm trying to talk to my guests about. What are some of the spiritual disciplines that you focus on that has helped you in your faith journey over the years, and that you'd recommend to others?
Yeah, I love the question, because as you know, I think that spiritual disciplines are those things that help connect us to God. You know, a lot of times when people hear the word spiritual discipline, they think about, you know, getting away in the mountains like a monk and silence and all this other stuff. And in reality, it's more simple than that. It's a daily thing of what is it that you can make sure that is a part of your regular rhythm of life that connects you with God. I love, is it Gary Thomas, who's written Sacred Pathways, where he talks about there's a lot of different people, and some people connect in nature, and some people connect in silence, but other people connect in service. And so for me, there are two things that I feel closest to God when I'm involved in. And one of those is when I'm sharing my faith. And one of the spiritual gifts that God has given me at salvation was evangelism. And I just, as other people who have the gift of evangelism, I have a knack of knowing where somebody is on their journey to Christ and just helping them take the next step if they're willing and open to doing that. And when I'm doing that, I feel connected to God in a way that I don't feel at any other time. And then another time that I feel that way is when I'm serving the poor. And I just think that's a great spiritual discipline. Of course, there's the basic disciplines that all of us want to be involved, like prayer and Bible study, and that's a given for everybody. But the times when I feel closest to God is when I'm introducing somebody to the love of God, or when I'm helping those that Jesus came to set free. And those are sweet, sweet times. And if you're not careful, all of us get so busy that we don't make room or we don't make space to do those things which most connect us to God. And you know, I know that that's a purpose of DC as well. And I appreciate what you guys are doing to reach out, the mission trips that you guys take, the qualities that you're teaching and modeling for the students that are there, including my grandkids. So thank you for the work you're doing as a part of the body of Christ, even as we continue to do that as a part of the body of Christ.
I appreciate that.
Thanks for the tea.
Thanks for your time.
Indeed.
Enjoy your Thanksgiving.
God bless.
Thanks, sir.